Hey, Bobby Manning here again at Madison Square Garden for another edition of the Garden Report. Noah Dalzell from Celtics blog here, and let's get into this Jayson Tatum MVP conversation. It's been going on for about a week. Started on First Take, some doubts about it there. We had Jayson Tatum to talk about it, through the All-Star break and in Chicago. Came up again tonight after the game with Joe Mazzulla discussing that all the little things Tatum did tonight might not add to the MVP case, but it should. Here's what he had to say.
Really great things from most of the guys, but I thought today was like a beautiful display of basketball from Jayson, and that will go underlooked and will not go into the most valuable category. But his ability to control the game with his pick and roll pace, his pick and roll passing, his defense, he put himself on Brunson, and the poise that he welcoming the 2-on-1s and creating for others was great. And my hat's off to him for knowing that that's a way for us to win. And it started with that. I thought Jalen was great. I thought Al had some great plays. I thought really JB was obviously tremendous. And you start to see how the guys positively impact each other on both ends of the floor.
So I haven't heard from you on this. There's been a ton of discussion. I think he came 6th in the straw poll, ESPN. Can he get into this mix here? Like, is he capable with the gaudy numbers of guys like Nikola, Jokic, and Luka Doncic, Giannis as well, all the guys who are ahead of him, Shea as well in that straw poll? Can them talking about it and just bringing it up get him into it? Because we've seen something like that happen before, but the numbers of those guys in front of him are just so astronomical.
Yeah, I mean, you can't underestimate the power of Boston media. So I think it's definitely a conversation that we've seen was pretty much non-existent 2 weeks ago, and now it's a daily conversation topic. So there's something to be said there. I don't think he can get to actually win the MVP, nor do I think he'll be in the top 2-3 voters, and he shouldn't. And I don't think that should be the objective, or it should be kind of a further conversation beyond this point. I think it would be a little bit of a bummer if they spent the next, the team and the media and everyone kind of spend the next month focusing on this, because if he starts to play with the mentality of, I need to have 35 points to be able to catch up to Luka and SGA and these guys that just have these crazy numbers, it's going to disrupt everything they're trying to do. And what we're seeing right now is that he's not doing that. I was actually really curious to see how he was going to come out of the All-Star break after saying those comments, having that interview with Malika and kind of saying, I'm the best player in the world. Is he going to come out now and try to prove it? And he really hasn't. He's come out here and played with the same selfless, team-oriented attitude that he's had all season that's made this team so successful. And ultimately, that's going to continue to be really, really important for this team to be effective. I think the other thing that I noticed from him is that, he's had moments in his career where he's been closer to the top of that race, and he's been actually really in contention for many, many points. I think the efficiency thing has always been his Achilles heel, and that's the thing that you can't really overcome. I think if he was putting smaller, lower numbers but still shooting 55% from the field, maybe it would be a little bit of an easier case to make, but other guys are just more efficient than him offensively, so that kind of hurts the narrative a little bit. So I think what he wants to do is to just be able to say, I should not be judged for the 2022 finals, which he shouldn't. It's an absurd idea that's why he won't win MVP. And I think he said that the other night, is that He's not saying he needs to be MVP, but he can't be getting crossed out because of something that happened 2 years ago, and that was just one bad series that every player has had at this point.
Yeah, no, I think it has to do more with the stats, as you talked about there. And the one thing he does have going for him here that I think could push him closer to the top is best player, best team. Like we talked about in our last video, They now have an 8-game lead on first in the East. They have a 5-6 game lead on the best record in the NBA. And if they extend that, the best record in the NBA, to like 5-10 games by the end of the year, that's a strong case in itself, especially where he's driving a lot of this. And, tonight, 8th straight game with 5+ assists. That matters. I think his passing prowess, if he can get that number up, is going to look good alongside what's still a pretty high scoring number, even if it's not in line with the 30s he's been putting up recently. So I think he can get to 3. Now, Jokic, I think, is insurmountable. What he does nightly is out of this world. Shea, I think, on that team of young guys, has a strong case, especially where they're at the top of their conference, too, of just, if he's there, they're great. If he's gone, I don't know where they would be. This talent on Boston does hurt Tatum to some degree if we're talking about things that take away from him. But all this conversation, I think, usually ends up mattering. Giannis, we'll see how Milwaukee finishes. I can't put them up there above Tatum with what they've done so far and the issues they've had. Luka, same thing. They're too low in the standings to me, and that usually matters here. So I could see him finishing 3rd. I could.
And you got to look at defense too. That's my biggest thing with MVP race. Jaylen Brown talked about it a couple weeks ago. Everybody, at the All-Star break, everybody just looks at what is the point production, and that's just half the game. And so there, Tatum has a leg up over a lot of these other candidates. Luka, you look defensively, he's been a little bit better this year, but you can't compare. I think it's actually a strength of SGA's. Something that he's a two-way player.
Yeah, he's outstanding.
Yeah, and Giannis too. So I wish that was a bigger part of the MVP race, is looking not just at points and 3-point shooting and scores, but actually looking at both sides of the ball. And so Tatum, he is capable of playing elite defense. We saw that for stretches tonight. We've seen that for stretches at different points of the season. I think if he strings together like a month of lockdown defense too, that could really help his candidacy as well.
Yeah, he could make an effort here in the team context as well to push for that award, and finding a balance between those two things is going to be the key for him, because he says this is important to him. It's not more important than winning a championship, but now with this lead, can you start to input and do different things that start to convince people a little bit? And he's done that with the passing, at least over the last week or two here. This is it for us here at MSG. Celtics finally heading home from the break, from this road trip to begin the second half. Philly on Tuesday. Dallas on Friday, speaking of Luka. So a couple home games coming up. We'll have them covered here on CLNS Media, Celtics All Access. Thanks for following along on this road trip. And check out our other video on this dominant win for the Celtics here over the Knicks. I'm Bobby Manning. She is Noah Dalzell from Celtics Blog. Check her out there. And we will talk to you back in Boston.
Take the first step to visibly thicker hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off first month subscription. Once again, $10 off first month subscription, free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and use the code GARDEN. Once again, $10 off Nutrafol.com/men. Use the code GARDEN.